Well, good afternoon, folks. This is Bill Costanzo, Livestock Guardian Dog Research Specialist at the AgriLife Center here in San Angelo. Today, we're going to be starting our Q&A session in just a minute here. I do want to thank the Sheep and Goat Predator Management Board, along with Dr. Redden, for providing support for the program. And we're going to go ahead and get started. We've got quite a few questions to get answered today from producers. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and run right into this thing. So our first producer question today is from William Bennington. He's got a male dog that just turning 3. But sometimes the dog seems to lose its temper and overdo it. He's worried that he'll take it too far at some point. And anyway, he had posted a video on the post for this month, and basically what happened is the dog was approached a male ram, and instead of just backing off, he got maybe a little bit more aggressive than the producer felt that he should have. And so he asked my thoughts on the video and if this type of thing is correctable. So first, I want to say, hey, thank you very much for posting the video, William. Those kind of things really help me out a lot to be able to answer the questions a little bit better for y'all when you're having issues. So personally, after watching the video, I don't know if there's been past times when the dog's been more aggressive, but what I saw, I didn't think the dog was being overly aggressive at all towards the ram. Some questions that I had was, has the ram been aggressive towards the dog in the past? Maybe as a puppy or a younger dog, maybe the ram bullied him some, and that might be why the dog is more aggressive towards that animal versus some of the others. If the dog, had been bullied, I think maybe he, is a little wary now of that ram, and he might be being a little proactive, growling and barking and being a little bit more aggressive so that he doesn't get charged or headbutted by that ram. If that's not the case, the dog may have just been teaching the ram to kind of stay away from him, that, the area is a little small, that you've got those sheep and those couple dogs together in. So, I'd kind of maybe look at that, trying to expand the area, or maybe not putting as many animals into that small of a place at one time. If you feel that the dog is not trying to defend himself from that ram, and definitely is maybe been more aggressive in some other instances, at 3 years old or almost 3, I would probably recommend moving towards a shock collar at that point. Try to keep an eye on him, and whenever he loses his temper, just give him a little bit of stimulation from that collar. I think that'll change his behavior fairly quickly. Some dogs are definitely more aggressive during feeding times. And our dogs will definitely get after some of the sheep or goats, when we're feeding cake out to them, especially in the wintertime. I'm not sure why the dogs love that livestock cake so much, but they definitely do. And they're definitely more aggressive, the ones I've seen that we have on our ranches, than your dog was in that video. So that's kind of my opinion based on what I had seen so far. If you've got some more videos that you'd like me to take a look at, I'm happy to take a look at those and maybe come up with a little bit more of a plan for you. So our next question, hopefully I'm going to pronounce your name right, but I think it's Juanita Bohr. They've got a 3-month, they have a pup that was 3 months old. The pup's now 15 months old. They had gotten, it was raised for a good while. It says nothing, putting him in right away with ewes or lambs. He saw some of the lambs as a toy. He chewed on some ears, killed a few chickens, a couple guineas. Recently, they found a month-old dead lamb in the field. They didn't see him do it. It was fine in the morning, but come the afternoon or the evening, the lamb was dead. And so the dog's been with the rams for the last summer until currently. And apparently he chewed on some of them on their ears, causing some blood to flow. So they feel like they can't blame the dog. Maybe they should have gotten some more info on using livestock guardian dogs. But they've received some different suggestions, and they feel like he's a good dog, but not sure if he's right for them. But they definitely want to try to correct these problems. And so my recommendation is, one, the dog is still, in the teenage months or adolescent time. That generally starts from about 8 months of age and runs until at least 18 months of age, some dogs all the way up to 24 months. So, I think there's definitely, you can correct this behavior. Normally my first suggestion, you've already done that. And so somebody gave you some good advice about putting him into a pen with the rams, because normally, mature rams or mature billies will help you correct some of those problems that come up with adolescent dogs, and you don't have to be there to do that. Those animals generally won't let them chase them or chew on them or that type of thing. And so I'm wondering if this instance, where, the dog definitely tore into their ears, if maybe, it was overfeed or something like that, or if he's just being overly aggressive for some reason. I would encourage you, and it didn't say, if you've had him fixed yet, but I would definitely get him neutered. It's definitely time. You're over the 1 year mark, and I see no reason to be waiting until 2 years of age to spay or neuter any livestock guardian dogs. I know about the research that's out there and about waiting and all those type of things, but if you've purchased a good dog from a reputable breeder, you shouldn't have any issues with hip or elbow dysplasia in those dogs, and getting them fixed definitely decreases the chances of roaming and some of these aggression issues, that come up. But since he's, 15 months of age, I would, definitely get a shock collar on this dog again. I'm sure he doesn't probably chew every day, but, try to watch him. Use one of those game cameras now that send pictures right to your phone. And, if you see him chasing or chewing on some animals, you can go out there and kind of sneak up on him. And as soon as he goes to do it when you're there, just shock him good. Anytime he, attempts to bite or chew or anything like that, I would definitely give him a good shock. Obviously, this is some bad behavior, and you need to stop this immediately. You definitely need to be stern with these dogs. They need training. They need behavior correction from time to time. And so a good amount of correction that, when something is wrong, helps alleviate that problem from happening again. Normally, when I scold one of our dogs, it usually only takes 2 or 3 times of that to happen, and they decide not to do that again. But it definitely needs to be a stern correction, not just telling them, no, don't do that. You need to be very forceful about it. The other thing that you can do is you can also try maybe some bitter apple spray, which is for horses, or, some cayenne pepper on the ears of those animals to make sure they're not getting chewed, to try and deter this dog also. So our next question comes from Amanda Stoffels. She posted a picture of Belle, which is a 6-month-old Akbash Anatolian mix. She's in a 4-acre bonding pen with about 5 head of sheep, and they've been rotated every 4 to 6 weeks, which is good. Says they check her almost daily. They lead, train her, familiarize her with people. They skip days sometimes if the schedule doesn't allow, but the main point she has is that they're not out there all the time, and they've seen evidence of her chewing on a tail, and the sheep seem to stay away from her, and she's not always close to them either. She says they've never seen her chase or bite any of the sheep, but it looks like the dog is doing good when they're there, but they've got some evidence, obviously, that tails are definitely being chewed on. And so they wanted to know, how do they train her when they're not there, 24 hours a day? So they try to put a dangle stick on her, which is something I would definitely recommend. Oh, but they want to know how old that the dog needs to be before they're out there with lambs. They lambed in December and January here, and most of the lambs are at least 30 days old. They're trying to decide they should add her to the flock with the older dogs, or if she's still too young. So lots of stuff in there. First, I would say, for a dog that's about 6 months old, I think your bonding pen might be a little bit big. That's probably why she's not staying close to sheep and the sheep aren't staying close to her. At 6 months of age, our dogs are still in a 1 acre bonding pen, which is fairly good size still. But it does give them room to move around and run around and burn off some energy. So they're not, necessarily wanting to chase stock as much. And it gives the stock some time to be away from the dogs too. But, and she may not, I'm not sure how long she's been in that 4 acre pen. If that's from the beginning, she may not have formed as strong of a bond with your livestock because the pen was so big. So, we start out with 8-week-old pups in a 60 by 60 foot pen. They stay there for a month, sometimes a little bit longer if I don't feel like they've gotten a good strong bond to those animals yet. And then I move them into a 1 acre pen until they're 6 months of age, and then they go out to a small pasture after that. She could be coming in a little early. Normally it's about 8 months of age for that teenage behavior to start, but sometimes I see it in dogs as early as 6 months. And again, that's going to run up to at least 18 or even 24 months, long. And so I'd remove any of those sheep that she's chewing on and rotate them out and try to place her into a smaller area. Again, as kind of I mentioned the last question that a producer posted, with some mature rams, because they generally won't tolerate that chewing or chasing that's obviously starting right now. And so the dangle stick's a good idea, but those rams should help you, with that 24-hour day training when you're not out there. If that's not possible, I definitely put some, again, as I mentioned, some bitter apple spray or some cayenne pepper on those animals' ears and tails to kind of discourage her from chewing on them. You're going to have to reapply that stuff every day or two. But it should, if she gets a mouthful of either one of those, she's probably not going to like that and will hopefully give up on doing some of that chewing. Again, I'd recommend, putting up some of those cellular game cameras. They're about the same price as a regular one. And, you can get all the pictures sent to your phone and really kind of keep an eye on what the dogs are doing. Game cameras are a really big thing, for bonding pens. It works really well for you to be able to keep an eye on the dogs. So to kind of answer your question about moving her out, I probably wouldn't move her out since she's showing some adolescent behavior already coming up. I'd try to give her another 6 months or so, in that 4 acre pen. That's definitely large enough for her. Try to keep rotating those animals out and, just kind of keep an eye on her. Once she's a year, I'd probably feel comfortable putting her out with your older dogs and they can kind of help, guide her in her training as being a guardian dog. So next up, Kevin Collard. He's got two Great Pyrenees that are 11 months old. They've been great with the cattle and llamas and their pet dogs and cats, but recently had some axis deer added to the ranch, and they found the dogs chasing them, and they found two of the deer dead, and they want to know if there's anything that they can do to stop them from chasing and killing the deer. Well, I'd love to tell you that I have a definite solution for that one, Kelvin, but from talking with other ranchers, it seems like young livestock guardian dogs are the ones that tend to chase livestock, or wildlife, I should say, more than older dogs. I think what it is it takes time for those pups, and even 11 months old, they're definitely still a pup, even though they're big, to learn that the deer and turkeys and other things, wildlife that they see, are not threats to their livestock. Once this happens over time, producers that I talk to say that, they end up having more wildlife in the area because the dogs have pushed all the coyotes and bobcats and other predators out. And, they're not harassing the deer or the turkeys or anything, because they understand at that point that they're not a threat to their sheep or goats or even their cattle. So, your dogs are really only doing what their natural instinct is, and that's to chase away things that they feel are going to harm their charges. So I don't know that there's a whole lot that you're going to be able to do. If you've got a smaller place, you could possibly try a shock collar on them. And if you see them chasing wildlife of any sort, hit the button. That's probably about the only thing I think you're going to be able to do. Unless you have deer that are, domesticated some, where you can go out and catch them and you could try to introduce the dogs to the deer, under a very controlled situation. I think that's about all you're going to be able to do, unless you have that ability. So sorry, I don't have a better answer for you on that one about chasing deer. And I will get to producer questions. If y'all have any that are posted in the comment, I see some coming through here. Our next question that was sent in earlier is from Jill Atkins, and she's got an 8-month-old Polish Tatcher female. She was raised from birth on a ranch with goats. They have a small farm, and they've introduced her to their goats. The goats are obviously not used to livestock guarding dog, and it seems like she wants to play and chase quite often. So they haven't been leaving her alone with the goats yet, unless they're out there and kind of supervising her. And they're wondering if they're headed in the right direction, or if they should be having her in with the goats more. They're just a little worried about her leaving them unattended, when they're not out there. So I guess I would say, your pup needs to be in an escape-proof pen with the goats for 10 to 14 days to kind of rebond her to your goats. Once you see your dog, laying with them, grooming those animals, the goats not running away from her not being scared of the goats, those things are real key, especially the grooming and the sleeping and laying with them. Then she's bonded to your animals. Anytime that you take a livestock guardian dog, that's an older pup, and you move them to a new location and you put them with different livestock, you have to go through a rebonding period. Even if it's a mature dog that's 3 or 4 years old, I would recommend, rebonding that dog to the new animals that are going to be in that location. Otherwise, you can tend to get them roaming, looking for their old animals that they were with, and it just creates a lot of problems. So just try to throw them into a pen for 10 to 14 days, usually at the most. Give them kind of a rebond to your animals, and then kind of go from there. As far as over socializing your dog, we spend 3 to 4 days a week on socializing our livestock guardian dogs. During that time, we leash train, we tether train them. They get truck rides, and you may even want to do some crate training with your dog, Jill. It's also important to, when you're going through the socialization, check their eyes, check their ears, stick your finger in their mouth, check their teeth, manipulate each one of their toes on their paws. Those things really help as your dog ages. And at some point in time, they're going to get into a porcupine, or they're going to get gored by a pig or injured or something. And, if you've done those things as a puppy, it makes it all the easier later on to, pull out those porcupine quills, or to give them medication, trim their toes, that kind of thing. So your Tatcher pup, is just coming into those teenage months. So really watch out for chewing of ears and tails and chasing. Those kind of things are coming your way, I would think, at some point in time here. Next up, again, another kind of great description from this producer of what was going on with the dog. This is for Jessica Sage. They've got a 3-year-old male livestock guardian dog. They're in Maine, and they use them to watch over some pastured meat chickens and turkeys. Quite a few, as a matter of fact. They've got about 1,000 chickens, about 80 turkeys from April to November each year. They say, he does a great job of chasing off the predators and things like that. And then from December to March, he's usually in the barn with some pigs that they have, about 50. And the dog apparently doesn't love the pigs. Well, I understand why. But, oh, he enjoys being in the barn when it's colder. And apparently he's been a little over socialized most of his life towards humans. So their issue is that he's unpredictably aggressive sometimes. About 90% of the time he's really good, but about 10% of the time it says, he'll growl with teeth and even advance on people. And it can happen over food, or even if the other dogs guardian dogs they have are getting attention and he's not. So recently they had an incident when their son was out. Son normally goes out every day and feeds the dog, sits with them. And the dog is trained to a release command that, the food gets put down and then they release him and then he eats. It says usually, it goes really well. But the son left the dog food cup next to the bowl. And when he went to grab it, the dog was growling, advanced toward the son. Producer came over, tried to back the dog off, still was aggressive towards them. And so the dog apparently has even been aggressive at some point with her husband. And so he's chewed on some goat legs before. And so they're concerned about this situation. And they're wondering if they need to rehome the dog or not. And so I guess I would agree, that you should be kind of concerned with the situation, especially since you have a younger child around. It sounds like you've tried to correct this behavior in the past, but, that the dog just hasn't learned, that you're the alpha in the situation and not him. I did ask, the dog has been fixed. He was fixed about a year ago, at about 2 years of age. And because sometimes, intact dogs are definitely more aggressive. But again, I don't think that, this dog really understands that, you're the person that's in charge. And so I'm not sure how, stern that you've been in the past to try to correct this behavior, but I don't tolerate any type of food aggression in our dogs. As soon as I see any of our puppies growling at each other or, being even, acting somewhat aggressive towards me if I'm filling a feeder or whatever, they are sternly disciplined immediately. I do not tolerate that at all from any dog, even my own, herding dogs and stuff. So that dog definitely needs to know, not to be aggressive. He's definitely craving human attention, is the way it sounds. Since he's a larger, older dog, I guess my question is, if you try to shock collar again. I know I've mentioned shock collars a lot today. I don't like them for younger dogs because I think producers can overuse them and abuse them. But in each one of these cases today, that I've mentioned this, I think it's warranted, especially with this dog. And so I would probably stop having your son, go out and feed this dog. But I would try to get a collar on him and see if that can, change some of this behavior. It definitely needs to be, corrected. Another thing, every time the dog's bad or is aggressive or something like that, I would probably kennel him. I use our kennels as punishment a lot of times for dogs that are roaming or doing some sort of bad behavior. And when they get kenneled, I am not nice to them. They get fed, their pen gets cleaned, and that's it. They don't get any pets. They don't get talked to, nothing. And they learn pretty fast that being in that kennel is not a good place to be. So that's something that I would suggest to you. The other thing too is maybe try to socialize with him a little bit less. Give him a few pets when he's with his livestock and then move on. Try to keep him away from the other dogs, and kind of see how those things go. As far as rehoming the dog, whoever you rehome them to is going to have the same issue. And so I think it's kind of up to you to try to fix this if you can. You may need to actually, speak with an actual dog trainer. There's a lot of things that they can do and probably help you out with a little bit more than what I can here today. So I hope that helps and answers your questions today. I do want to get to some producer questions that have just been posted here. I've got a little bit more from William Bennington, who was our first producer on the list today. He says the space we're in was a barn stall that they were going in during some extreme cold weather. They did have one ram before that was aggressive to the dog and wouldn't back off, so they separated him and have since culled that ram. So they said this ram so far has been very good with the dog. I've definitely seen him this way in other situations. So for instance, I was standing out there and the sheep came running and one of my ewes accidentally ran into him. He got mad and ran after her and tried to grab her at the top of the neck, and he scolded him. So I guess I'd say, William, you've got a dog that at this point, since you had an aggressive ram, and it's good that you got rid of that ram and culled him. I would do that with any ram or ewe or nanny or anything else that's being aggressive towards one of the dogs. That dog is just kind of gun shy at this point. And so every time, any animal is going to bump into him or, headbutt him or anything, he's definitely going to go after him. And I don't know that you're going to be able to correct that behavior at this point in time. If you can catch it in the action or as it's happening, I would definitely scold the dog each time. And maybe use that situation I just mentioned of, moving the dog to a kennel for a day or two every time something like that happens. And eventually that they should learn. But it's definitely not the dog's fault at this point. It's because you had that one ram that was aggressive all the time. And so the dog is just trying to defend himself each time he gets butted or run into or something like that. So I would try to encourage you, if you're working livestock, maybe pull that dog out before you get him into a pen. Because he's definitely going to become very aggressive, if you're running him through the corrals with the rest of the livestock, if you're processing animals or something like that. We've got a question from Lynn here. It says, could a Lyme disease diagnosis have been a factor in the aggression between females that are a year apart in age? The aggression started as the younger developed symptoms. They've been separated for months as knee injuries are healing in the Armenian Gamper with Lyme disease. Will we be able to reintroduce them? So I would say, yes, it probably could be a factor. Is it for sure? I'm not sure. I'm definitely not an expert in, reactions from Lyme disease in dogs. We don't have Lyme disease as a very big issue in our area, and so I don't generally deal with this too much. But I would say you should be able to reintroduce the dogs, though, once the knee injury is healed up. I would start just as if, one of the dogs had never seen the other dog before. And so, I would start with one dog probably tethered up, on a good chain, and then the other dog on a leash. And if there's any type of aggression, just stop, pull them back, scold the dog that's being aggressive, and, start fresh again the next day. I would run this, for probably a couple weeks at a time. And as, they're fine being together, one dog leashed and one dog tethered, then I would take probably the dog off the leash and let them walk around, if it's in a pen or something like that. Eventually then, move to the next step. One dog's kind of loose, maybe feed the dogs together and make sure there's no aggression that happens over food being introduced. If that's good, the next step I would take is releasing both dogs, having them together, people being in there, animals being in the mix. And then again, at some point, the next step, introduce food again. If everybody's still good, you could probably let them out and they'll probably be able to guard together again. If at any point you have aggression, then I would back up a step, go back to having one tethered and one on a leash, or, the one dog that was aggressive tethered while the other dog is loose in the pen. Just kind of depends on where you are in that process of those steps as they go along. Jessica asks, do I have any suggestions on shock collar brands? That there are some good ones out there, and you really don't have to spend like $150, $200. If you drop me an email, Jessica, I can send you a link to one that's on Amazon. My student helper uses it for her dogs, and it's really a good unit. She's got a bird dog that she's training with it, and it's like I think it's like $69, and you can have more than one dog on the system, and it's got, I think, like a 1,200-yard range, and she's had it out like in hilly country and brushy country, and she's been able to tone the dog or simulate the dog as needed to correct any bad behavior as far as for doing hunting and things like that. So drop me an email, Jessica, and I can send you a link to that Amazon spot for that shock collar. Jill says, you mentioned getting them fixed prior to 2 years. Would 8 months be all right? I would say, we fix our dogs about 10 months of age, 10 or 11 months of age. I think 8 might be a little bit young. Although we have had females, Jill, that have come into heat at 8 months. And so, the big problem with having intact dogs, is from talking to people breeders who've had these dogs, been doing this for 30 or 40 years, they really feel these dogs have a very strong breeding instinct. And I tend to agree with with them from what I've seen. So, when they come into heat, and there's not a male around, they're going to go looking for a male possibly to get bred. Or, you're going to have a male dog and he's going to smell a female and heat on the wind and leave. And then so as soon as that roaming starts, you've got a way bigger problem than anything else that you might have had on your hands. Again, I go back to, if you've bought a good dog from a reputable breeder, you're probably not going to have any issues with hip or elbow dysplasia. And so getting them spayed or neutered at 10 or 11 months of age, we haven't seen any issues in any of our dogs that have gone through the bonding project or the dogs that we've had on our research ranches by getting it done at that point in time. I would say definitely probably 10 months of age, if you have a female, and, probably maybe at the most 12 months of age on a male. We've got some very large guardian dogs that were fixed at that age. And again, they don't have any structural issues now. They didn't have any before that. And, I can't imagine them being any bigger than they already are. So I think if you wait to around that 10 to 12 month mark, the dogs are pretty close at that point to being fully mature in size. And it's going to take 30 to 60 days for those hormones to kind of, even out and dissipate through the system. So there's still going to be some carryover growth that happens if you wait until 11 or 12 months of age. I understand all the information that's out there about waiting on large breed dogs and stuff like that, but none of that was written for livestock guardian dogs. And people need to, again, take into account that issue of roaming. Roaming is a way bigger issue. If your dog is roaming, most likely they're going to get hit by a car, shot by a hunter, poisoned or snared. And so you're not going to have to worry about any structural issues coming up later on because you're not going to have the dog because it's roaming. So that's my take on, when to get a livestock guardian dog fixed. But, we're at the point here. I've got one more question that Jill just popped in here. And so I'm going to go ahead and get this one. She says, good to know the breeder's actually got hip x-ray on her at 6 months with no structural issues. Yes, she's a female also, but I get the shock collar link. I guess I'll just try to go ahead and maybe post that link on here to the one that we've been trying out here at the center. Oh, so yeah, again, buy your guard dogs from a good reputable breeder. It might cost you, $400 to $600, but it's probably going to be worth it in the long run. Those free or relatively cheap livestock guardian dogs that out there end up causing more problems than they're worth a lot of times. And I'll just say this real quick on today's video. I had a producer send me a picture of a livestock guardian dog, and they were curious about the coloring pattern. Well, as soon as I got the picture after we talked a little bit, that livestock guardian dog was definitely mixed with a border collie. You could just tell by looking at the color pattern and kind of the way the dog looked. And they claimed that, the person they got them from, that, oh no, this was a straight livestock guardian dog. It was a Pyrenees, and I forget what the other mix was that they claimed was the reason the dog had the distinctive coloring. Well, that definitely wasn't true. So, buy your guard dogs from a good reputable breeder. If you're looking for guard dogs, I'd recommend that you go onto the Texas Livestock Guardian Dog Association. There's a breeder page on there, and you can find dogs from breeders that are reputable on that website. So, hey, I appreciate everybody logging in today and posting questions. I think this was a really good session, and I appreciate the long explanations of the issues that y'all have going on with your dog. So thank you very much. We'll have another Q&A session live on Facebook the first Thursday in March. So thank you very much for logging in, everybody. Have a good day.